We don't need to live in that place, but we need to remember in our minds and recall to our remembrance on a regular basis how good the Lord has been to us. What is so significant in Luke 17 here about these 10 lepers is that out of the 10 that were healed, only one returned to say thanks. Only one. There were 9 out of the 10 that did not even take the time to say to the Lord, thank you. Thank you. And if we were to infer this truth, it would help us understand how we need also to be a people of thanks. Charles Brown, a noted Bible scholar, said this about the other 9. He gave 9 reasons. These are just suggestions. These are not actually biblical truths. But as a scholar, he said there were the other 9, each had a reason, possibly for why they did not return. And here is some of what he suggests could have been. One waited to see if the cure was real. One waited to see if it would last. One said he would see Jesus later. One decided that he had never had leprosy. One said he would have gotten well anyway. One gave the glory to the priests. One said, oh, well, Jesus didn't really do anything. One said, any rabbi could have done that. One said, I was already much improved. Again, suggestions as to possibly what excuses they could have used for not returning to say thanks to Jesus. And then there is this one who returned to give thanks to Christ. In this message today, I want us to look at some of the insights and discover why, and discover how those insights can also be a part of our own personal relationship with Christ, so that we too can become a people who are more thankful. All right, number 1. On the back of your bulletin is the outline. You can take out your pens. I'll be adding more notes to you than just the main points. If you'd like to write some of those personal thoughts down or insights that are shared that are not on the PowerPoint, you can do so behind each of these points. Number 1, notice the leper's condition. Notice the leper's condition. Most of us have heard horror stories of leprosy. And in the Bible, there were actually known in places leprous colonies, or places outside of the city where those who had this dreaded disease were told that they must stay. This is a painful thought for us as we think about these lepers having a stigma that also went along with this disease. You see, according to the Mosaic law that was pronounced upon lepers, they were pronounced to be unclean. Unclean. Remember that word. They were not fit to enter into the tabernacle. Later, they were not fit or permitted to enter into the temple for worship. They were no longer permitted to live with their families. The law required them to live outside the city. The law required that they tear their clothes and that they show by doing that an extreme sorrow. That their faces should be covered. This is what the Mosaic law said. Their faces should be covered. And that if anyone came near them, here's what they were supposed to do. If I'm a leper and you came near me, I had to, before you got within 100 paces, I had to say, unclean, unclean. And you would know, I will not go near that person. He's a leper. This was the Mosaic law. And this is how those who had this disease were perceived and how they were treated if anyone would come close to them. Their faces were hidden, which represents to us that there was no form of intimacy that they could have with others. According to Hebrew tradition, the face, to the Hebrews, the face was seen as being the most intimate part of a person. When I think of today in 2009, that is far from what our society thinks to be the most intimate part of a person. But according to Hebrew tradition, the face was seen as the most intimate part, and when their faces had to be covered, it meant that they were not able to have any type of intimate relationship, even with their own family members, to be able to see their faces. When we read about the Hebrews and the Jews who were commanded to seek the face of God, it had great meaning to them in this understanding of the Mosaic Law, because it was a commandment to seek His presence. To the Hebrew, the word face meant the same as presence. So to be a leper in this day and age meant no intimacy with anyone, no friendship with anyone. It meant to be isolated, to be a total outcast. Leprosy, we know, is a disease. It still exists today, my friend. But it is a disease that in the day of Jesus, and in that time frame, the Jews believed that those who had this disease of leprosy, it was believed that they were inflicted with this disease for some punishment for a particular sin they committed. More than for any other disease that was spread or that was contracted. In this particular culture and society, leprosy was designated as punishment upon those for some particular sin more extreme than other sins. And as a result, if you were a leper, you lost everything. You lost your family, you lost your job, you lost your money, you lost your home. And so you can see the desperateness of the life of a leper. In verse 12 of Luke 17, it describes these lepers for us. It says they were standing afar off. We now know why they were standing afar off. Rabbinic tradition, and as I said earlier, rabbinic tradition said that they had to stand at least 100 paces away from others. And so they could not even come close to Jesus. Apparently they had heard about Jesus, they knew about Jesus, they knew about His power, they knew about the supernatural miracles that He had done. And so from afar off, even though they could not come near Him, they began to cry out for mercy from Him. This gives us in a picture form today for us. It gives us a picture of sin. It gives us a picture of Satan who wishes to alienate us from Christ, to keep us from drawing near to Christ, to separate us from Christ. Are you seeing this insight here today, spiritually speaking? In the Bible dictionary, Eaton's Bible dictionary, it says this about leprosy. Leprosy was the outward and visible sign of the innermost spiritual corruption. A tiny problem in its small beginnings, its gradual spread, its internal disfigurement, its destruction little by little of the whole body. It corrupts, degrades, defiles man's inner nature, and renders him unable to enter the presence of a pure and holy God. This comparison today and this example of leprosy helps to identify for us, in reality, sin and how it corrupts and how it defiles and how it degrades and how it alienates us and how it actually separates us from a pure and holy God. Just like the leper today, and I speak to this congregation, just like the leper, we too were isolated from true intimacy. We too were outcasts from the kingdom of God. We too are in the process of losing